Da 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 da.
No. That's actually over the top.
I know.
I quite like that start though. It's going to be a good podcast, folks. Hello!
Hello!
Welcome back, and welcome to...
the Across the Pond NFL podcast.
You got it right this week.
Hey!
And this is the first week for probably the whole time we've been doing this where we're both not really ill.
Well, I am recovering.
Yeah, well, I'm still coughing up nasty stuff, but I've got a voice back, which is good.
This is going to be a great episode, then.
Yeah, exactly. And you're feeling how?
Well, health-wise, on the mend. General state, fucking exhausted.
Yes, and why is that?
Because I stayed up until 5 o'clock in the morning to watch Monday Night Football.
That was a wise decision.
Yeah.
I think that Monday Night Football, especially with an overtime, so I'm quite used to this because the Steelers play a lot on Monday night because they're always in prime time because they're so good. Sorry, I just spat on your screen then, didn't I?
You did, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I stay up a lot for the Steelers, and I know the pain of being up until what time do you go to bed?
About 5:15.
5:15.
Because there was 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and it was 4 o'clock, and I thought to myself, okay, well, we'll get through these next 8 minutes in like half an hour or so. And yeah.
Then it went to overtime.
But
that happens every single time you're watching one of these late games, is you think there's that point in the fourth quarter where you're like, oh, I could go to bed and just watch the rest of it tomorrow morning. But then you're like, no, I've committed to it now. And it's agony. And I don't, because normally overtime with those late games doesn't go quite as long as your one went yesterday.
Okay. So, let me just, it's agonizing to lose in overtime. It always is.
And the prospect of an unbeaten season.
Missing a kick to win the game.
Losing to divisional rivals.
Okay, we don't need it. However, and I think this is poignant for this podcast because it's what it was all set up for, which is that the American NFL fans often sort of deride the UK fans for not being as committed or as involved in their teams.
Do they? I don't think they care about us. I don't think they even think
about
us.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't pay us much heed. However, there is one thing that we go through that they will never understand.
Never.
And that is having to stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning to watch your replacement kicker, signed 3 days earlier, kick it into the tunnel. And then to give Russell Wilson three goes in overtime.
You don't want to be giving Russell Wilson 3 goes at anything.
It was painful. It was very painful. However, saying that, I'm happy that I stayed up. It was a very good match. It was a very interesting and exciting match.
One of the games of the season, I think.
Probably the game of the season, I would argue.
I don't know, where maybe you've got some,
bias there?
Special bias there.
But yeah, it was such a good and interesting game. And you know what? As a 49er fan, without Kittle, with Emmanuel Sanders going out injured, it was so desperately sad to see Jimmy Garoppolo actually have quite a good game in front of
I'd like to dispute that point.
front of the offensive line with these 2 great offensive tackles who were coming back in but clearly looked just a step off. Jadeveon Clowney was a fantastic game, and I said when he was signed, I said I was not happy about it, and this is why.
He's a monster.
Indeed, and he made absolute jokes of Staley and McGlinchey, who have otherwise been so good throughout their careers. And so Garoppolo, behind this offensive line that couldn't give him any time, was actually throwing some great balls, and the receivers just couldn't catch it. And I think that's the real sort of talent and thing that we miss with Emmanuel Sanders and with George Kittle, is that they just are so much better with their hands. They catch balls in difficult positions, but also when it's coming in with some zip, they can catch it and then go. And we saw flashes of that from Deebo Samuel, but really, Kendrick Bourne with multiple drops and one of the interceptions was because it flicked off a 49ers hand. Two near interceptions came from the same situation.
But the interception that flicked off, who was the receiver?
Kendrick Bourne.
Okay. That was a bad pass. It was far too high, and he was wide open.
Yeah, but he got two hands to it.
It doesn't matter.
He got two hands to it.
Doesn't matter.
And a receiver, their job is, if the quarterback puts it in place where you can jump up and get two hands to it, it is your job to bring that ball down.
It was too high. It was a bad pass. And what I said to you before, my concern with the 49ers is their defense is a monster. That pass rush is ridiculous. And I actually think there are a lot of comparisons last year with the Rams and the 49ers this year, where you've got a quarterback who is mistake prone. So Jared Goff last year, Jimmy G this year. The 3 touchdowns that the Seahawks scored last night were on drives that were from 49ers turnovers, all 3 of which came directly from Jimmy G. And it's interesting because it is quite a good comparison of an offensive head coached mastermind with McVay last year and Shanahan this year, scheming a quarterback that is mistake prone but is in a great system. So it was just interesting to see that what I flagged up as the 49ers' one weakness, which was Jimmy G's mistakes, did become quite prevalent in this game. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I'm not saying he can't throw at all, but he has mistakes in him, and that cost them last night severely. But I do think that considering all of that happened, it still took a lot and for them to lose last night, and it went to overtime. So I'm getting on the 49ers train with you a little bit more than I was before.
Well,
but I still think that there are mistakes.
I think you should board. I think you should come and join me up in first class here, because Jimmy G, I don't think it was down to him. Yes, he fumbled the ball because of those sacks, but that's because the line was just porous. The 2 offensive tackles were clearly not up to scratch. Then you had Weston Richburg, the center, who went out, and his replacement is a massive step down. No offense to him, but it's a big step down from Weston Richburg. So they were just getting through too easily, and he was getting hit too much. And we saw his ability with some incredible passes with pressure in his face. He got hit and still threw balls that were received. And you can see the stats before Sanders went out to after Sanders went out, that there was a massive drop-off because he just doesn't have a reliable receiver to go to. And not only did he not have Sanders, he didn't have Kittle. That was a huge ankle brace on him throughout the game. And frankly, I think if those 2 players were playing, I think we would have beaten them more handily. I'm encouraged that it was such a close game, and clearly we can compete with these sort of top teams of the NFL. You know, the shoe-in for NFL MVP. We sacked him more than anyone else has this season, and I was very impressed by the 49ers team and by Jimmy.
What I will say, because if there are Seahawks fans out there, they'll be screaming at you at the moment saying that Will Dissly is also out, who's a star tight end for the Seahawks, and didn't Lockett go out halfway through this game?
No, he went out in the 4th quarter.
Okay. But what we said last week became very apparent this week, where it was 2 great pass rushes and 2 O-lines that couldn't cope with it. Especially worrying for the Seahawks, because that O-line, which has been a big problem for them always, and they don't seem to be very good at fixing it, became a real problem for them. I think going forward, I really don't know about the Seahawks, because you've got Russell playing out of his mind at the moment, but I don't think that they can go that deep in the playoffs against some pretty good pass rushes with that
offensive line is very bad. I will say you were spot on talking about this being pass rush versus pass rush, and I think the big difference in the game was the pass rush of the Seahawks were able to, or rather the Seahawks were able to score points off of those turnovers. And aside from the DeForest Buckner fumble recovery for a touchdown late in the game, aside from that, the 49ers were not able to replicate that, and that proved to be a deciding factor.
I think what it all came down to is they're two teams that are actually very similar in a lot of ways, and at the end of the day, just the tiny deciding factor maybe was that one end you've got Russell Wilson and the other you've got Jimmy G.
I disagree. I think the deciding factor was the kicker.
Well, yeah, obviously, with the kick missed. But a great game and a great sort of advert for this podcast, because it's what we're all about, of English fans
suffering until 5 o'clock in the morning.
And it's a big gamble to stay up for these games, because I've done it in the past with, Steelers-Ravens games are always on Monday night late. And I've seen them win some and I've seen them lose some. And, it's a gamble.
It is. And what I was really encouraged by, because our guy in charge of our Twitter, John, he let me take over because he decided that he needed to sleep, which I think is poor form by him.
No, John needed some sleep.
We'll sort that internally. Don't worry, folks. But what was very great was taking over that Twitter and seeing the small but passionate community of UK NFL supporters who were all staying up and who were all talking about how fantastic that game was. Everyone went crazy with that Dre Greenlaw interception, which was fantastic. And then everyone was dreadfully dismayed when the kick went wide.
Monumental effort from everyone that didn't have work this morning. So well done,
exactly.
You.
Yeah,
well, maybe you did.
There was a great camaraderie, and that's what it's all about. That is what it's all about.
But moving on, because we don't want to dwell on your pain too much, because you've got your lovely little joggers on and you're looking so tired and downbeat that, I wouldn't want to rub it in. But
sure.
This was a very strange week, because all the teams that were 1-7 won. And the league this year is a very strange proposition.
Well, you said at the begining of the year that you thought that this was going to be a boring season.
Did I say boring? I think I said that none of the teams were very good.
No, you used the word boring.
Oh, well.
And frankly,
I use a lot of words.
It's all getting a lot closer. I mean, let's just quickly go through this. In the AFC East, of course, you've got the New England Patriots, who seem to be running away from it, and the Bills had a chance to start closing the gap and then messed it up against Cleveland. But
I think that's decided.
That's
AFC
pretty much decided, but still, it's rare that you see the New England Patriots only 2 wins ahead at this point. Then in the AFC North, you've got the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I'm sure you're going to tell us about.
We'll come on to them.
But they looked out of it. They're coming back now. But then again, Baltimore are looking fantastic. The AFC South, probably the closest division, with the Texans on 6 wins, the Colts and the Titans on 5 each, Jacksonville on 4. That one is really all to play for. Then you go AFC West with Kansas on 6-4, Oakland on 5-4, the Chargers starting to make a comeback, and the Broncos, I think
they're done. I think you can. There are a couple of teams in the AFC that you can maybe 3 that you can completely rule out, and I do think the Broncos are one of them. But apart from that, it's the division in general.
The Bengals, the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Broncos all look out of it. But even then, you look at the Jets and the Dolphins both got wins this week. The Broncos are making this slow comeback.
Are you suggesting that the Jets, my beloved Jets,
No.
well, not my beloved Jets because I'm a Steelers fan, but my pick for team of the podcast are going to make a run for the playoffs?
No, they aren't. No,
they're not.
But then you go to the NFC East, where Dallas and Philadelphia are locked in a heated battle. You've got Green Bay and Minnesota in the NFC North. The Bears look like they're probably out of it now, and the Lions, who have been fighting so passionately, also seem to have missed the mark this time around. In the NFC South, you've got the Saints, who looked like they were perhaps, and I say this as a 49ers fan, perhaps the top seed in the NFC, but they lost to the Falcons. Carolina's hot on their tails at 5-4. And then the NFC West, where, of course, we saw the Seahawks make a big move towards claiming the top spot in that one. They're still second. We're on 8-1. They're on 8-2. And the Rams are one win away from making this a closer competition.
I think the NFC is interesting because it's a lot more clear cut between the good teams and the bad teams, because I think all the divisions really are down to 2 teams, but the races are all quite tight. Whereas the AFC is just a mess of mediocre rubbish at the moment. Because the Steelers are in the 6th wildcard spot, and they started 0-4. So what does that tell you? But there's a lot of it's a very competitive league. I think it's with all the quarterbacks going down, and in general injuries seem really, really prevalent this year. It is making the league a lot more competitive. There's a lot more parity between teams, and even teams that are trying to lose can't lose. And
like the Dolphins.
The Dolphins are really making a hash of this tanking job, and Flores is showing himself to be a real good candidate for a proper good head coach, because for the last 4 weeks, the Dolphins have been pretty competitive. Against the Steelers, even when they lost that one, they were 14 up at half-time. They've been looking like, despite having a mess of a roster and trading everyone away, and, Fitzmagic at quarterback can pull it out of the bag sometimes, but he's looking like he has earned the right to stay there next year, because I thought that they were just going to plug someone in there for the season and then get rid. But there's no reason why he can't take on this team with all those draft picks and really make a go of it.
Yeah, well, they're probably not going to get one of these top 3 quarterbacks coming out. Tua, Burrow, and not Haskins. Starts with an H. Huckberg, something like that.
But I have a little bit of a hot take.
Ooh, I love a hot take.
Because I think what Miami have seen is that they could trade for Cam Newton, because the Panthers want to get rid of Cam Newton. And I just have a little feeling that they've gone, do you know what? This losing thing really sucks. We have amassed a lot of first round, second round picks, a lot of picks going forward in the future. What they'd have to give up for Cam, not quite sure, but the Panthers seem like they're going to listen to offers and they're not going to be ridiculous about it, and are probably there to make a trade. So they could trade some of these first round picks away. I don't know what you would have to give up for him. What do you reckon? Like a couple of firsts, or not even that?
I think that the Panthers have shown their hand too early here. So I think he will actually go quite cheap, to be honest with you, because they clearly don't. They want to move on from him. They don't want that cap hit. So I think someone who's willing to take on the cap hit will be able to get him on the cheap.
Yeah. And the Dolphins have a lot of cap room.
They have cap room. They have picks to use on it. Also, it looks like they're probably going to have the 5th pick in the draft at the moment. They might still move forward, but I think those 3 QBs will go 1, 2, 3, and then you've got the defensive end from, is it Alabama or Ohio State, who's currently being considered as the undisputed best player, although we know that quarterbacks tend to do better in the draft than other positions.
I think a quarterback will go first.
Oh, of course. But then you've got Tua's main target in Judy, who, and I watched this Louisiana-Alabama game, and
which I asked you, should I watch? Because we might need to prep for the podcast. You said, no, I don't watch college football. And then you messaged me like at the end of the game going, this game's crazy. And I'm like,
it was a good game.
Well, I was going to watch it.
It was a good game. But the running backs were the ones who really shone there. But the few flashes I did see of Judy, he does look like a phenomenal wide receiver. And I imagine he will go in the top 5. So the Dolphins could end up getting Judy as their talented wide receiver, and then have Cam as their quarterback throwing to him, and that would be a very, very enticing prospect.
Well, talking of quarterbacks, again, what I learned this week, well, what John learned on Twitter, is don't go after quarterbacks on Twitter. Oh no, because I was watching the Steelers game, obviously. And I John put out a tweet saying Mason Rudolph is the worst starting quarterback in the league. Discuss.
I love a tweet with discuss. So well done.
Yes,
well done,
and it got some interaction with it from some
superstar,
some well-known NFL personalities. But
are we going to mention them?
No, we don't need to. We're well above that. But yes, what I don't understand is why, because I am a Steelers fan, and I don't think that anyone on Twitter was understanding that, and I learned that if anyone is from Pittsburgh, they don't like you bashing their quarterback. But why would you defend someone who's useless? The Steelers are in the position that they are purely because of the defense. It's nothing to do with Mason Rudolph. One of those wins belongs to Hodges anyway, and people keep quoting quarterback rating to me and sending stats through with quarterback rating. You cannot send me quarterback ratings because plays like the week before last week where Rudolph pump faked in his own end zone with people all around him and gave up a safety, that doesn't factor into quarterback rating.
Gave up another safety.
What did he do this week? Gave up another safety. His pocket awareness is awful. And his mechanics are so bad. He takes so long to release the ball. And the Steelers have one of, if not the best O-line in the NFL. If he was behind even average O-line, he would be seriously suffering now. And people said, oh, there were a lot of drops this week. Yes, there were a lot of drops this week. But that doesn't excuse everything that he's done wrong previously. And a lot of those drops are because he's throwing into traffic so much. He's not giving them chances to catch balls, and I just think that you can't defend Mason Rudolph. I saw someone on Twitter saying he was on par with Wentz this season, and I just thought there was no point even replying to that. Maybe he's not the worst. That's why I said discuss. I think he is, if not one of the worst. I'm not including quarterbacks like Hoyer in this because he's only starting for a couple of weeks. And people have said, oh, well, Mason Rudolph's not. He's a temporary starter. Well, is he? Because with no guarantee that Roethlisberger is going to come back. He says that he is, but when it's been a full year and next season, and also Rudolph is clearly the quarterback of the future because the Steelers gave up a first-round pick, so they're clearly not interested in drafting a quarterback next year. And they said, even though they drafted him in the third round, Tomlin's come out and said that they had a first-round grade on him when they drafted him. Yeah. So they think he's the quarterback of the future, and I just think that it would be a real mistake. But one highlight for the Steelers, and I think we've having talked about the 49ers and their pass rush, I put out another tweet saying that the Steelers' defense is the best in the league. Discuss. They have been immense. They are monsters on pass rush. Even in the fourth quarter, they come like they do when they're at... Well, that was a bit dodgy, wasn't it? They come early, they come late, They're still going in the fourth quarter and they're immense, especially my boy, TJ. I mean, what he's on this season. I mean, I'm not suggesting he's on anything. We
would never suggest anything like that.
But there's clearly something in that gene pool that's ridiculous because he is a monster and a big candidate for Defensive Player of the Year alongside Mr. Minkah Fitzpatrick, who has had a ridiculous start with the Steelers. He's played...
Another steal. Jadeveon Clowney was a great trade. Yeah. Fitzpatrick is turning out to be a great trade.
So that trade is looking like a really good one. I mean, everyone was going, oh, it's such a mistake. Even if it's in the top 10, it doesn't look like it's going to be a top 10 pick anymore. And I think even if the Steelers had a top 3 to 5 pick, maybe, because they could have drafted another quarterback... But if you're outside, I mean, even the top 5, are you really getting a good quarterback next season? Because so many teams are needy in that position. But it's a really interesting time for the Steelers because they're, in playoff spots, despite, looking a bit dodgy on offense. But how far can they go? Probably, I think if they make the playoffs, they'll lose in the first game. But, really exciting.
I've been listening to your non-apology about what you said about Rudolph. Sorry, what John said about Rudolph. But I feel that I actually have to come out with a genuine apology. Because when we did our rankings of best quarterbacks, I put a certain Mr. Tannehill, the new quarterback in Tennessee, last.
Ouch.
And in this game against the Chiefs... he was very impressive. That 23-yard touchdown to Humphreys with 23 seconds left. I just like the symmetry there with time and distance. Because what is the world but time over distance?
Distance. Symmetry.
Lovely. He also did some incredible things with his feet. He had some really good runs and really pushing through. You know, not sliding. He was running hard, and it was very impressive to see. Yes, the defense or the special teams rather came up with a crucial block on that final punt, and the defense played their part against a Chiefs team and a quarterback in Mahomes who looks like he's coming back strong.
He's maybe about... Well, he's not quite full.
Yeah, he's maybe 85%.
He did that stupid throw where he was off his feet, and that was ludicrous, and it went for a touchdown.
And he was connected. Yeah, he was connecting with Hill downfield. There was one incredible bomb of the throw that Hill just got fingertips to, and that would have been incredible and gotten me a lot of fantasy points. But anyway, we move on. I'm talking about Tannehill here, and I'm talking about the fact that he had a really good game here, and I shouldn't have been so quick to judge him.
I did tell you he was accurate. I did say, mind you, that to be fair, I had him below Mitch Trubisky, Daniel Jones, Jameis Winston. So
and he's helped by Derrick Henry, who had another great game there. I think Henry actually had more yardage than Tannehill, but I've been big on quarterbacks who do what they need to do. And that's what Tannehill did. He did what he needed to do. In a few occasions, he did a bit more by running and gaining that new set of downs himself. And well, I was wrong. And sometimes in life, you've just got to admit when you're wrong and suck it up. And that's what I'm doing.
That's a quick turnaround there. You're back on the Tannehill train.
I'm not on the Tannehill train. I'm just saying I shouldn't have ranked him last. And I apologize, Mr. Tannehill.
Should we make a corner for him?
No.
Because, we love
We've got enough corners.
Are you going to send him some flowers and chocolates? Because, you didn't send any.
Well, my flour and chocolate bill is going to get really high here. So,
well, you spoke about Tannehill doing something special with his feet. There was another quarterback that did something special with his feet this week. Dak Prescott,
the dancing Dak.
Yeah, I mean that's all we're going to say about the Cowboys-Vikings game because we don't like to analyse things on this podcast. We're just about the pageantry.
That was some beautiful pageantry. And Jimmy Garoppolo tried to emulate it, but I think it wasn't as good as the original.
He just looks too cool doing it, whereas, Jimmy just kind of, he's all suave and I'm doing my little moves. Dak was just hilarious. Yeah. I loved it. And if you look up the Dak Dances to Anything hashtag on Twitter, it's a real treat. There are some great things going on there.
Before we get lost in the world of quarterbacks dancing, which should be a thread, let's move on to our next segment. And we asked the wonderful listeners of this podcast to submit for us and play one of our favorite games, which is if there were to be a London franchise or a UK franchise, what would you call them? What would their whole ethos be? What would their outfits be? What would their special name for their defense? And we got quite a lot of responses, so we're going to rattle through some highlights here.
Oh, we had some really
best
good
names.
Ones, really funny ones.
So we had a Bengals fan OM with
getting the team names right is crucial to doing an NFL podcast.
Indeed. His suggestion was the London Legion, which is very good, very good.
Yeah, the Roman influence all those years ago. What have the Romans done for us?
Exactly.
And, well, they've helped create an NFL team.
And then we had Peter Walker with... And we were perhaps too hasty to suggest a London team, and Peter put us in our place with a wonderful suggestion. I'm fully behind this. The Liverpool Beatles. Because it works on so many levels.
Yeah.
Beatles...
Well, two levels.
Yes, that Beatles are a very hearty creature that can take a lot of damage and move great weights.
I feel like they'd be a strong, running, defense-heavy team.
Which is what we've already said a UK team would have to be. But then you also have the other element of it, which is the Beatles, and coming from Liverpool.
The Beatles, who are they?
They are a small rock band of the 60s and 70s. They have a couple of hits, Get the greatest hits, and you'll get.
Yeah, have a little look.
Yeah,
but,
worth seeing.
We are still taking submissions through it, and we'll run through some more. But if you do have any non-London based ones, let us know, because we're not just about London. We're about everywhere.
Yeah.
We want to welcome all the people of the UK, which Chris Eason did by sending us an idea for the Sheffield Scimitars. I think it's a great idea. He said it combines the Sheffield steel sort of element to it. And, nice and strong and scything through opposition teams.
Indeed. And then we had NFL Princess with the London Hooligans.
Oh, that would be great.
Which is a little call to our football supporting fans and their comportment.
That would align quite well with your London ale drinkers.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be one big piss up. It would be a mess. So much fun to go and watch, though. So I would definitely be on board with that. Next, we had from London Titan the idea of bringing back the London Monarchs, which is quite a nice idea. They were an established team. Mm-hmm. Martin Johnson of England rugby fame played for them, I believe. Did he?
Oh,
I think he did. Yeah, because he played in NFL Europe.
That's it.
He did. So yeah,
I think we should.
Nice idea.
I think we should take a quick tea break.
What, because of the London Monarchs?
Indeed.
Let's cheers to the monarchy. That's a homage to the London teacups, which is, of course, my idea for an NFL franchise.
A fantastic idea, may I say. Then we had a political one, and we like to stay apolitical on this show.
I mean, we did just cheers to the monarchy, so we don't.
Alan Wickers with the London Brexiteers. Which I like the irony of, seeing as London was one of the least Brexit supporting areas in the country.
I think we should probably not say too much.
No, let's move on. Let's move on. You did have a fun little interaction
I had
with Dave.
a fun little interaction where Dave suggested that they were called the London Savoys, and he said he's eaten one and he doesn't know what it is. If you don't know what a Savoy is, go to your local fish and chip shop. They are delicious. And we went through a bit more, but he said, no, in all seriousness, in London there are no sort of animals that strike fear into anyone's hearts, because we've got rats and foxes and pigeons, and I don't think the London pigeons would be particularly good. And he said the scariest living thing to come from London was the Black Death. So I said to him, well, I don't think the London Plague would be a particularly good selling point.
I don't think anyone wants to go and watch the London Plague.
What would their symbol be? Like a face with loads of boils all over it?
No, just those doctors, the hats that they wore with the long beaks.
Oh, that would be so
really cool. That'd be really cool.
Imagine their mascot. That would be awful.
That'd be great. He'd immediately win the mascot competition.
My God.
Well done, Dave Hart. Amy Rose suggested that the Patriots be sent over. I think her suggestion was more that she wanted them out of the league altogether, but she suggested
out of the country at least.
She suggested that they be sent over, and in a little ironic twist, said we changed them from the Patriots to the London Loyalists. A little history joke there for the nerds.
For all those people in the UK who have no idea about American history, because we weren't taught any of it. But hey ho,
Next we had Monkey Man.
Wow,
with a great suggestion that Will is now going to tell you.
Yeah, well, he had a few. He basically wanted to reflect the drama and energy of the league. So he had the London Apocalypse and another one that I can't remember. He also had the London Trans-Ischemic Attack. I can't pronounce it, but it equates to basically a mini stroke. So he thinks that's reflective of the drama of the league is having a little mini stroke. So
we did have to look that up on the NHS website.
We did. It's a temporary disruption in the blood supply to part of the brain. So if you didn't know, you see, we're not just an NFL podcast. We are a learning podcast for all you science folk out there. Moving on. Patrick Jackson, very much up my street, took a little dig at Wembley prices and decided to call his NFL franchise the London Overpriced. Ouch.
I think a little dig at perhaps the fact that it's such a London-centric question, and many people find London to be generally overpriced. So
I know I do.
And then we had long-time listener and friend of the pod, Howard Horner.
We have many friends of the pod.
Indeed. But he actually followed the instructions and sent in a little audio recording of his suggestion.
Is that a dig at the rest of the listeners there?
Oh, I would never have a dig at our listeners. But let's have a listen to Howard.
My idea for a London-based NFL team would be the Westminster Churchills. Now, I don't know if you've seen in the news, but Westminster Palace is in a horrible state of decay. It's not really fit for purpose anymore. So my suggestion is that we kick out all the politicians, put them somewhere else, and we remodel Westminster Palace, the Houses of Commons, to become an NFL ground. So they play right on the river with Big Ben looking over. It will be the most iconic stadium in all of American football. It will be a tourist attraction like nothing else. And obviously, everyone loves Churchill. Well, in a few years, we can have a Redskin-like discussion about whether the team should be named after Churchill. Shit.
So thank you very much, Howard, for the idea of the Winston Churchills. As he said, there's some parallels with the Redskins there.
Yeah, I think he came to an awkward realisation by the end.
Yeah, halfway through. But we like your chutzpah and your effort there, Howard. And if anybody else wants to send us any audio recordings giving us a nice picture of their London franchise, we want uniforms, we want stadiums, we want...
Oh yeah, stadiums. We didn't get many stadiums.
Yeah,
well,
describe,
Howard's was good.
Describe it to us.
Yeah.
And you can do that at our email address, which is acp.podcast@gmail.com. I believe I've got that right. It's a very confusing email address. We know. We apologise.
It's acpnfl.podcast.
Oh, okay. So it's acp... Is it dot?
No, acpnfl.podcast.
@gmail.com. We're very prepared. We know our own email address. Just to clarify, the email address is acpnfl.podcast@gmail.com. So send us an email in there and we'll play out the best ones
keep them
next
coming.
week on the podcast.
Now for the big moment. Da-da-da-da!
Very exciting.
That everyone's been waiting for.
Oh, yeah, we've been running a cheeky little prize giveaway over the last 2 weeks, wasn't it? We started off on Halloween with UK American sport, and on Twitter, as all of you entered saw, we were giving away 2 New Era hats to one lucky winner and their mate. And would you like to do the honours of announcing the winner?
Yes. Drum roll. I just realised I could actually just put a real drum roll in.
No, we do everything manually.
The winner is Gareth F.
Yes. Mysterious. Mr.
And
F.
and their mate K Novak. So the two of you enjoy those New Era hats.
Yeah, so we'll whack you a little message on Twitter and we'll send them out to you as soon as possible. And keep an eye out because we have got some exciting other prize giveaways coming up in the next couple of months. So very, very exciting. One really big one, which we will reveal in a little bit. But exciting times.
And do have a look at the UK American Sports Store.co.uk. They were our partners in this and are providing the New Era hats. They have a list on their website of things they have in stock here in the UK. Great for Christmas. I am looking at the San Francisco Faithful shirt, which I'm very tempted to buy and may well do so.
Maybe I'll get it for you for Christmas.
Oh, well, that would be very kind
if
of you.
You've been good this year.
And of course, if there's some other things that you want that aren't available on there, do send them a message and they will get in touch with their suppliers and get those available for you.
Yeah, you can order merchandise on request. If there's something you're looking for and you can't find it, get in contact with them. The supplier from the US is Football Fanatics, so if you have trouble getting like a terrible towel, which I know a lot of people do over here as Steelers fans because they don't sell them on other websites, just give them a message and they'll hopefully sort you out. But huge thank you to all the guys and gals at UK American Sports. Really great teaming up with you, and we hope we can in the future as well.
Indeed, indeed. Now, moving on to the predictions. And this week was terrible.
Well, not as terrible as last week because we did actually remember to do them.
Yeah, but maybe we would have been better off not doing them.
Well, maybe, yeah. I mean, I had a slightly better week than you.
Well, you got 3 right. Yeah. I got 2 right.
Yeah. It was a weird week, as we say, with all the 1-7 teams winning. We struggled. And I didn't do Will's terrible prediction of the week last week on Twitter, on the podcast, but I did do it on Twitter, and I predicted the Bengals to beat the Ravens, which was probably the worst prediction possible last week.
Yeah.
Because that was a demolition job.
But we always have room to improve, and perhaps this is that week. So, Will, what's going to be your
Will's
pick?
terrible prediction of the week? Yes, it's time, it's back, it's everybody's favourite bit. It's Will's terrible prediction of the week, and I am going for the game between those plucky Broncos and the Vikings. Now, the Vikings have had a strange season. They've been beating the easy teams, relatively. They're looking like they're on a little bit of a roll at the moment now, though. I mean, they lost 2 games ago, but they won against the Cowboys this week. And I think the Broncos, there's been a bit of a hit to their pride. People are down on them. Joe Flacco's given up on them. I think that this could be time for a cheeky little upset, and the Broncos defense are going to show what they're made of, and they're going to stop Kirk Cousins doing whatever Kirk Cousins tries to do. I do think that he's a massively overrated quarterback. I would class him as somewhat mediocre, as anyone that listened to our...
He looked quite good this week.
I know, but there's just something about him that I don't like. And as if you listen to my QB ratings, you'll know that I was most distressed that I had to put him so high up. But I think that the Broncos are going to go into Minnesota and cause some trouble. And I'm predicting them to win. And that was Will's terrible prediction of the week.
Well, that was quite a bold prediction there. And
I mean, they're always wrong, so...
Well, to be a terrible prediction, it has to be terrible. So,
I've got one right, haven't I?
You're keeping true to the name. The game I want to talk about is the Saints-Bucks. Because the Saints have come off this pretty embarrassing win against a huge rival in the Falcons.
Loss. You said win.
Oh, sorry.
Embarrassing win.
Embarrassing loss.
Well, that was embarrassing.
That was. Embarrassing loss against the Falcons, who truly embarrassed them. And, the Saints were looking like perhaps the best team in the NFC. I don't know if you can say that anymore.
I had a funny feeling when Drew came back, it would all fall apart with Teddy balling out.
Yeah, I mean there were calls, chants in the stadium of Teddy. Some have alleged that it was actually Falcons fans making those chants, but who knows? But on the other side of the ball, you've got the Bucks, whose offense has looked truly impressive.
Well, they're not truly impressive. They are the most hit and miss offense.
Oh, they're wild. They're crazy.
They can do incredible things, but they are so mistake prone, especially Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I mean they've scored 260 points so far. They've conceded 279, which is it's not where you want that line to be. However, their offense has looked quite compelling and quite fun to watch. Top 6 in most points scored, and I think that they could be quite a sneaky team going into this. The Saints, of course, traveling down to Florida, so they have the home advantage there. The Saints defense has looked very good up until this last game. I said with the 49ers the other day that sometimes with the defense, when they're feeling themselves too much, they think it's just going to come too easy, and they stop necessarily putting in the grind. And I think that's maybe what happened here with the Saints against the Falcons, against a team that was 1-7 going into this game. So I imagine this will have been a rude awakening for them, and they will be coming to this next game far more prepared, far more awake. So, as much as I would love to do a terrible prediction, I still cannot see past this Saints team. I think they are a top 3, top 4 team in the NFC. I think that they will win this one. I think it will be a shootout, but in the end, the Saints defense, I think, will be the one that prevails and prove to be the stronger force overall.
Well, Drew, his pocket awareness, Drew, I say it like we're friends for years.
Well, we are, Drew, yeah.
But the Breeze, his pocket awareness looked slightly off last week. He wasn't stepping up as much as you'd like.
And he didn't look terribly good the game before.
Yeah, and the Falcons sacked him, and they've been struggling for sacks this season. They sacked him 6 times.
That's equaling the record for most sacks.
Whether that's on the O-line so much or Breeze, I don't know. But there were a couple of moments where his movement in the pocket was not pleasing me. And this is his first game back that he won't be playing in his dome. And we all know how much Breeze likes his dome and doesn't like going outside too much. So, this will be an interesting proposition.
And it has to be said that the Bucs defense, whilst it's not so great in the secondary, is quite good on the line with Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea and names like that. So, they could get a lot of pressure onto him, and that could be quite tricky.
Interesting. That could have been my terrible prediction of the week.
It could have been, but I have called it, and I'm calling it for the Saints.
Let's move on
to Fantasy Corner.
So, this is a huge week.
Big week.
Monumental, some may say. And all this money and excitement and interest that goes into fantasy football. There are thousands, millions of people playing fantasy football all over the world. But it all boils down to 2 teams playing each other. It's me versus you this week.
Ooh.
And this is some matchup because our league is as close can be.
It is well poised.
I'm 10th with a record of 4-6.
And I'm 4th with a record of 6-4.
And from 2nd to 11th,
there's 2 games in it.
There's only 2 games in it. So this is really, really exciting. There are so many teams on 5-5, and you and I are going up against each other. And if I win, the playoff run is on. I am hopeful for this week because Yahoo's telling me that I'm going to win, despite the fact that their percentage matchups are awful. But
you currently have a 3-point lead, which is nothing.
As I learnt last week, you don't even need a 1-point lead. You just need a lead. Because I was beaten by 0.8.
I remember that. I am particularly weak in the running back division. There you have Le'Veon Bell, who I think may struggle to achieve his current prediction. You do have Marlon Mack, who's up against Jacksonville, so that's a game that I'm a little bit worried about.
It's that Pittsburgh defense, though. It keeps bailing me out, and they have put up some points. They got 25 against the Rams, and I don't think that's going to stop playing against Baker Mayfield. There's turnovers in there.
That's true.
Sharky Boy's back off his bye.
Well, I've got my wide receivers are very good. I've got Hill, I've got Hopkins, I do have Hilton, who is doubtful at the moment. I hope that he can come back because that would really round it out. I do have Brown from Buffalo, who's been playing very well this year, and Crowder in New Jersey, who's also been sort of the top target there. So I'm really good on that side. Meanwhile, you do have Chark, you have Golladay, but I think that Sanders, the way he stepped out of that game and was shaking his head, I would be surprised if he comes back to play against Arizona this week.
Well, thanks for the tip. Do you think we should make it interesting? Another plate of wings.
I would
on the line.
Happily put a plate of wings on.
Let's put a plate of wings on it, and we'll head down to another London spot to watch the NFL.
Where are we going this week?
I don't know. Winner's choice.
Okay, but we'll only know who's won after the week, so it can't be winner's choice. We have to decide where we're going before.
Why?
Because you will only win after the week has passed. So how can we decide where we're going this week?
What?
Do you not see?
No, the plate of wings is on the line after this week's finished.
Okay, but where are we going to see the games this week?
Oh, this week? Oh, I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Didn't you recommend Bellucci's?
Oh, yes, yeah, I did, in Hammersmith. So we'll go down there.
We'll go down to Bellucci's. We are continuing our journey of London hotspots to go and partake in some football, and we will be bringing you our rankings later on down the line.
And just to make the fantasy section slightly wider and less narcissistic, a little cheeky tip for a pickup this week would be the Seahawks tight end Hollister, who I picked up last minute yesterday, last night, because Kittle was out, and he put up, I think, 25 points. So if you're, struggling at tight end, maybe pick him up. And that's Will's Fantasy Tip of the Week. It's a new jingle. Didn't work.
No, you should have really workshopped that before you just brought it out. Anyway, that's all from us this week, and we love you all, and we'll see you next week.
And we'll see what mystery illness we bring to the table next week.
How exciting.